to your thing is...
Alice, you always like to do an introduction, but I don't know whether you want to this time. Alice is the only one that gets me to speak. I don't really do this for too many people, so.
I feel very close to Andrew because I knew his father, and I think I had met his grandfather. I'm not sure. This is 3 generations of brilliant men that gave so much to the fashion industry, created everything. I remember my past was that I was a stylist in the textile business, Wamsutter Mills, Concord, and it was always the Rosens that were our big accounts. And they were forward-looking, creative, not boring. I remember that. And I think we're very privileged to have Andrew with us today because you can learn a lot just from whatever questions you ask him and whatever answers he gives you, just tuck it away because they will be very valuable for your future in the fashion, especially today when it's very difficult. Okay? All right, Andrew. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, you didn't give me the big build-up you didn't read the notes, but it's okay. No. No, no, you don't have to read the notes. No, you don't have to read the notes. I'm going to tell him about it.
You will?
Yeah, I'll tell him. So anyway, some of you guys asked how I got started doing this.
From my heart, I forgot about
It's better that way than you. The notes are outdated anyway. Yeah,
Okay.
there's many new things since then. So I got started, how I got started was that actually my grandfather started in the early 1900s in this industry, and he started his company, Puritan Dress Company, in 1910, so it was 100 years ago. And my dad worked for his father, and then I went to work for my dad when I was 19 years old. And I suppose that instead of going to college, I had a different form of education. And I went to college, which wouldn't be too different than what you're going to FIT. I went to college with my dad's school, and but I learned much of the same things you are learning, just in a more practical aspect. And I spent the early part of my work experience working in factories and warehouses. And who's calling? My son. Hold on. Austin, can I call you back? Okay. My son is 22. He didn't go to college either. He's doing the same thing I did. Anyway, so I spent a lot of the first couple of years working in sort of the back end of the business and learning all about manufacturing and all about warehousing and pattern making and all that kind of stuff, which was a really, really good education because later on in life, I knew enough about that stuff that nobody could really put it over on me, or I didn't have to rely on anyone else later in life. But anyway, and then I went to work in the showrooms and learning how to sell and market and merchandise clothing. And today, the equivalent of that, in my opinion, would be for you guys to go working in a retail store. And I think that you guys ultimately, whether you're working in design or whether you're working in merchandising is something, the best thing you could do right now while you're going to school. You don't have to work, by the way, every day. You could work every day, but go work in a retail store. Go work in a retail store, you get experience. And the whole thing is that when I was young, I thought I knew everything. And I thought I knew how to do things, and I was smart and I was quick, and I thought I could do anything. But the fact of the matter is, I could do a lot, but I just didn't have the experience to know how to use my brains. And later on in life, as I got a lot of experience, I then became, I then became a little more successful because I knew how to use my intelligence and all of that, because I had the experience to back it up. So like the first thing that I like to tell you guys is that you should get some experience before you go and do something on your own. And it's really good to do. And you can do it by working in a retail store. You can do it by working in with some clothing company that you respect. You know, get an internship, anything like that. And then even after you get out of school, I always like to tell you to go get a job. And then after you've had a job for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you want to go do something on your own, you can. Anyway, so my thing is that I worked for my dad for 5 years. My dad got sick, and I had to take over his business. And his business was a $250 million New York Stock Exchange company. And my dad got sick, and a year later he passed away. And so I didn't have so much experience, and I was 25 years old, and I had to take over this company and run this company. And it worked for a little while, and then Calvin Klein and his partner said, because we were the licensee for Calvin Klein jeans, we were manufacturing Calvin Klein jeans, Calvin Klein said, no 26-year-old kid is going to determine our fate and run our business. And he bought in sort of a fairly public hostile takeover the business. And I ended up going to work for Calvin Klein. And I spent 3 or 4 years with Calvin Klein, and ultimately became the president of all of their companies and running their business again. And when that happened, I decided that I didn't want to do something connected to my family and to my history, and wanted to do something different, not yet on my own. And I went to work for the first guys that offered me a job. I wasn't even looking for a job, but the first guys that offered me a job was the guys that own Anne Klein. And Anne Klein at that time had Anne Klein. Anne Klein 2 was a very popular, it was 1989, was a very popular company, doing lots and lots of business and very successful. And the designer that had left the year before to go start her own business was Donna Karan. So Donna Karan was the designer of Anne Klein. She left Anne Klein to go start her own business. And the guys that own Anne Klein put her in her own business, so they own 50% of her company, and she owned the other 50%. So when they first came to talk to me, I thought they were talking about going to work. They wanted me to go work for Donna Karan, which I was excited about. But I didn't know so much about Anne Klein, but they wanted me to work for Anne Klein, and I was running Anne Klein. I was the CEO of Anne Klein. And for 4 or 5 years, everything was really good. And then the business started to get tough. And I wanted to change very much what the business was about. And the guys that owned the company didn't really like that idea, and so they fired me. So, well, at that time it was a little more traumatic than it is today, but, you know, sometimes not every company is right for everybody, or everybody is right for every company. You know, there are a lot of people that work for me that do really great for me, then they've gone on and maybe they haven't done so well, or vice versa. A lot of people that haven't done well for me and they go work someplace else and they do great. So it really probably wasn't the right place for me at that after all those years of being there. And I wanted to go do something on my own anyway. And I decided that I wanted to start a business. I didn't really know what business I was going to start. I just wanted to do something on my own and start a company where I was happy going to work. There wasn't so many politics. I could create an environment where other people were happy and inspired by working there. And I could develop a culture and a philosophy of doing business that was all about all of the good things and not so much about all the bad things I had learned for the last 15 years I was in the business. And I wanted to do something that could inspire me and inspire other people. And I came up with the idea that I was going to make a line of clothing of all the fabrics being with Lycra. And I felt that it was unique. Nobody else was doing it. I felt that fabrics with Lycra had a huge advantage in that the clothes could be really sexy, but they could be really comfortable at the same time. And I really feel that comfort is as important as sex in terms of clothes, because people want to look good, but they also want to feel good. And so I thought I had a pretty unique concept. And I also, at that time, what I didn't like is everybody was making clothing that this shirt had to go with this sweater and this pair of pants, and it was all coordinated kind of sportswear. And I felt that the modern woman wanted clothes that were a little more flexible and clothes that, could be mixed and matched and didn't have to be worn one way. They could be more versatile. And remember, this is back in 1996, 1997, and it was just the beginning sort of cell phones, and we didn't even have the internet or anything like that back then. But the workplace was becoming more mobile, and people's lives were becoming more mobile because they could be connected no matter where they were. And so in thinking about that, I wanted clothing that was much more mobile and much more versatile than what I had felt people who were making clothing at that time, or what their focus was. And my focus was making individual pieces, all made of fabrics with Lycra, very sexy kind of clothes, but very comfortable clothes. And when I started the company, a lot of people said to me, why are you doing that? And, oh, that's so limiting. And I guess I thought to myself, well, I could have a nice $20, $25 million business, and, I could do something I loved, and it didn't have to be huge. I didn't have to have this big company. The most important thing was that I wanted to have a company that I was inspired to work at, and that people were inspired to work with me, and so on. And so we started this company, and from the beginning, it sort of took off. And we went from 0 to 6 million the first year, to 20 million the second year, to 40 million, to 60 million, and so on and so forth. Today we do a little over 500 million, and do business all over the world. But anyway, I then got the idea that I had a partner when I started the business. I started the business with a fellow by the name of Eli Tahari. Eli Tahari had his own company, and he wanted me to help him run his company. And I said, okay, I do that, but I want to start a business. So we had started this business together. And, in 2003, I sort of felt like I wanted to have some more independence. I wanted to be able to be free to do whatever I wanted to do. And I had seen my father, who had worked in his business, had been successful in his business, but was tied to his business. He couldn't leave. In fact, and my dad loved working, don't get me wrong, but he ended up being stuck to his business. He had no choices in life, because he was tied into his business. So I said, well, I don't want to do that. And I agreed to, I got Ellie to agree to sell our business, and I agreed to sell our business to my Japanese licensee. And part of the reason why I wanted to sell the business to my Japanese licensee is I wanted to create one global company, a company that had a headquarters in New York, and I had a company that had a headquarters in Japan. And because the reason I wanted to do that was I felt that the world was changing a little bit, and that one needed a more global environment. One needed to be able to do business globally. And this was back in 2003. Obviously, 2010 today, you think about that, of course you have to have a global business. You can't do business just in one country. So I wanted to have these two headquarters. And in a way, I was envisioning sort of the kind of company that I believed one had to build for the future. And so we built, we had a company that had a base in New York and a base in Tokyo in Japan. And after we sold the business kept growing and growing and growing. As I say, we sold the business was doing about 200 million. Today it does about 500 million. And so then in 2007, 2008, there was two companies that bought the business. One was my licensee in Japan, and the other was a company called Fast Retailing. Fast Retailing is the company that owns Uniqlo stores. So I don't know whether all you guys know Uniqlo. And Uniqlo in 2008 bought 100% of Theory. And so originally, I didn't go through this, but when I originally sold the company in 2003, Uniqlo had a piece, and the Japanese licensee had a piece, and I still had a piece. But anyway, 2008, Uniqlo buys 100% of our business. And all of this, why am I explaining all of this, is because all of this was an evolution of our company and a learning experience for myself, and really a plan for myself in terms of getting to where we got to today. And you know, when I look today at what's happening, and you know, I recently made a change by hiring Olivier Thayskens. Olivier Thayskens is probably one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 designers in the world, and Olivier has been designing couture clothes. And I originally hired Olivier Thayskens in June to do a capsule collection for Theory called Thayskens Theory. And the reason I did that is because Theory has been around since 1997. And in my mind, Theory was getting safe and conservative and big. It wasn't able to compete in the same way that it used to compete with younger, smaller companies that had more energy, that didn't have so many people to listen to, that had a singular vision. And as our company got big, like other big companies, they become more democratic. In my opinion, the fashion industry is not democratic. It's built on the vision and energy of a single individual. And as the company got bigger, it got more democratic, and I felt like I had to listen to too many people, or I had to sort of acquiesce to too many different opinions. And so I wanted to do something where the company no longer became democratic in its creative process, but became sort of, what do they call that, autocratic? When one person makes the decision, it's autocratic, right? So I felt that the only way I could do this was to bring in somebody of the stature of Olivier Thayskens. And so I originally started with Olivier Thayskens doing a capsule collection, because I didn't know how Olivier Thayskens was going to work in our environment. I didn't know whether he was going to like us or I was going to like him. And I also felt that the way to move Theory ahead very aggressively was to bring someone like this. It was a very new idea. If you talk about bringing the creativity and energy of a couture designer down into the idea of making clothes for lots and lots of people, because the contemporary marketplace reaches and it makes clothes at a price that's affordable for lots of people. And anyway, so this whole concept was, although I think that people were surprised by it, it was incredibly well received, because people said, oh, what a great idea. Taking a designer of this level and making clothes that are designer clothes but are much more accessibly priced. Nobody had really ever done that. You know, the designers, when they make for H&M or Target or something, they make very inexpensive clothes. But these clothes are not inexpensive clothes. They're still clothes with a lot of design integrity. So anyway, I spent 4 months learning Olivier and Olivier learning us, and I decided after the 4 months that the right idea was which was my concept from the beginning, was to take Olivier and have Olivier not only design Thayskens Theory, but to design the whole theory collection. Now, what was I going to accomplish by that? I was going to bring a whole new energy and creativity into the business. I was going to get all of my people, all of my stores that had been buying theory, really enthusiastic about a change of something new and something exciting coming in. And I was going to also get all of the people within my company inspired by the opportunity to work with someone like this. And I had worked with Olivier, so I knew Olivier was very inspiring. I knew that he would really move the company forward and move the energy and excitement within the company. And the other thing I realized was that in order to do business in the new way, I had to do business globally. And even though I was doing business globally, I felt that theory was a brand without a face to it. And although that worked very well for me from 1997 to 2010, I felt that to go beyond 2010, that I needed the creativity and energy of a designer to resonate in some of the new countries like China and India and even some countries in Europe, and that Olivier would bring a whole new energy and a whole new excitement to the company, and that would be, that the press would recognize and that would go to a new level. So all of this was part of sort of a strategic plan to move the company forward to another level. So why am I discussing this with you? Or why am I describing this to you? Because, you know, all of this was part and parcel of sort of, as I say, a strategy that I had thought about a while ago as to how I was going to take a company that was doing very well, but how I was going to energize it to do even better in the new world. And when I looked at what the qualities of our company were, and I looked at what the requirements were of doing business in what I thought the new world was, I had to sort of find a way to get there. And so I think that was only something that I could have arrived at because of sort of looking at things very pragmatically, and because of my experience, and I had sort of figured out that I needed to move the company forward. It's not like, I mean, the fact of the matter is, our 2009 was the biggest year was the second biggest year we ever had. So I'm making all these changes when the business was good, but I had to anticipate the future. So anyway, I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but that's sort of some of my thinking there. And also, you know, to the question of how to differentiate oneself, I think that differentiating oneself for the sake of being different is not good. Differentiating yourself because you have a point of view that's different than everyone else is fine. And, you know, I differentiated myself when I started out because I thought that there was an opportunity to make clothing out of fabrics with Lycra when nobody else was doing it. And even in this case, what I'm differentiating myself from other contemporary brands or contemporary companies by hiring a designer from the highest level and differentiating what we do in that way. And I tend to like to do things or see things differently than other people. And I see things differently than other people, again, not for the sake of being different, but just because I have a different perspective. And I don't think that in the world of fashion, there's only one way to do things. There's many ways to do things. And the best way to do them, if you're running a company, is the way that you have a passion and an inspiration for. And I always think that, you know, I always get, you know, I ask a lot of people that I may trust their opinions on things, but at the end of the day, I always make the decision that I feel most comfortable about. I tend not to think it's necessary to make a decision that's most popular or a decision that someone else wants. I tend to, at the end of the day, always make decisions that I feel good about and that I can support. And whether they're right or wrong, and sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're wrong, but at least if I know that they're decisions that I made that I felt myself. And I mean, that's one thing that I can say to you guys, too. There'll be lots of decisions that you guys have to make over the coming years. And I say to you, I think that it's best to listen to people, but at the end of the day, you got to make the decision that works for you. And I very much am that way, and I do lots of different things within our industry. Not only theory, but lots of different other companies. I'm involved with companies like Rag & Bone and Alice and Olivia and, you know, all of those and many others. But those are things that you know, I like to meet young designers and young companies and evaluate whether I think the idea that they have it can be bigger than what it is currently. And, you know, I like to use my own instincts a lot and my own experience. And that's why I say to you, getting experience, if you have experience from a retail store is what turns a customer on or what turns a customer off, it's good for you guys to know, and then you can make decisions, whether it's merchandising decisions when you work for a company or design decisions, whether you work for a company, because you know the reaction that you're going to get from customers by working in a retail store. So anyway, do we have any questions about anything that I've talked about so far, or any things you guys want to talk about? Yeah? What was what? Oh, so when my dad's company was the licensee for Calvin Klein jeans. So when I first started working there, I was actually working in a factory, and I was doing sort of time studies, engineering studies, seeing how long it took to sew this seam, timing it, and all of that for costing. It was engineering, you know. But it was all it was all sort of learning about the manufacturing of clothing. You know, so here's the thing. I suppose that I have a vision for where I want our company to be, but I don't tend to necessarily put 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I sort of have a vision for where I want the company to go, and then sort of organically and so on it goes. Whether that happens in 3 years or 5 years, it doesn't matter to me. And if in as long as I have sort of an overall strategy, you know, then as time goes on, I can add to or you know, rethink or reorganize that plan. But it was very interesting because back in maybe 2000, our company had started to have a lot of success. And I had felt that what I wanted to do with the company was to own the contemporary marketplace, very much like Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Prada owned the designer marketplace. And so I sort of had this whole idea that I was going to do with our company very much like what those companies did. And I always felt that if you looked at Louis Vuitton or Gucci or Prada, they symbolized the designer marketplace. They were the epitome of the designer marketplace. They had a global business. They had much of their business in their own retail. And they really controlled, each one of those companies controlled large chunks of that space. So if I look back, when I was thinking about that in 2000, I had this vision I wanted to do. So when you think now in 2010, I have Theory, Helmut Lang, Taskin's Theory, Alice and Olivia, Rag and Bone. You know, it's sort of, as I say, I had this vision for wanting to do this, and over a number of years, that's sort of what happened, and I was able to sort of accomplish that concept. So what I'm looking to do over the next number of years with Theory is that, with Olivier Taskins, is that I feel that we can broaden out the product assortment, where now it's just clothing, to have accessories, to have more and more of our business controlled in our own retail stores. Right now, about 50% of our business around the world is in our own retail stores, but I want to get that up to 70 or 80%, because we'll talk a little bit about my feeling for department stores and the future of that, future of wholesaling. And I want to be able to expand our business. Right now, 90% of our business is in Japan and the USA, even though we do business elsewhere, maybe 85% of our business. Even though we do business elsewhere, we don't really do meaningful business elsewhere. And that was another reason why I wanted to bring up at least the recognition of the company from a brand to have a designer affiliation, because I felt it would help us do business in Europe and the rest of Asia, China especially. So I have a vision for where I want to go and how I want to get there. But how I want to get there is constantly an evolving situation. You know, this is where I want my company to be, but constantly along the way, I'm having to evolve the situation. So part of the reason why I've made the decisions that I've made in the company is to get us to a higher place than we are now. And where we are is a very good place. It's not that it's so bad, but businesses, like the world, like consumers' taste, have to continue to evolve. If the businesses stay in the same place doing the same thing, as the world evolves and the consumer evolves, everything is going to evolve past the business. So it's very important for the business to continue to evolve. So when I talk about evolution of the business, I talk about evolution of a lot of the methodologies that we use in the business. The aesthetic of the business and the culture of the business remains the same. The culture of our company is not going to change whether I hire Olivier Taskins or not. The culture is going to be the same. The aesthetic of the company is going to be the same. Olivier Taskins is going to have to design within the aesthetic of Theory. But the methodology and the energy and the excitement of the company, I hope we continue to move forward and not make stale. You understand that, right? Okay. Yeah. You know, I think that everyone talks about China, what a great opportunity it is, and it is a great opportunity, but it's one also that one has to be careful, because you don't get more than one chance there. And I think that it is going to be such a competitive marketplace that those companies that, you know, remember, in America, which is our home country, I say our home country, my home country, many of you guys' home country, not everyone's, but where I live, it's very easy for me to do business here. I know the culture, I know the methodology of business, people know me, people trust me, all that kind of thing. It's easy. Even if I screw up, I can come back. So when I go to China, nobody knows me. I don't know the culture there. I don't know the methodology of business there. In fact, the methodology of business there is just happening now. It's all changing and evolving. So when one goes to to China to do business, one has to be very careful. And you have to, and the other thing is you're competing with companies all over the world because everyone is rushing in there at the same time. So, you must do things that are smart. You must do things that are energetic and exciting to the customer. It isn't just like you can go there and say, oh, this is the land of opportunity. I'm going to slap up a store. And it has to be done with, a very, very strong and strategic plan, and one that, you have to invest a lot of money in good ideas there. So I don't see that as, I see sort of, opening some important stores in important locations there and doing it the right way. I don't see rushing it in. And frankly, I also think that it's important to find the right local people to do business with, the right relationships. I think a lot of times it's better to have joint ventures than it is to do things yourself. So, and I'm one that if I can't do something really well, I would rather wait than to do it half-assed. So a lot of things that may be opportunities for the company, I tend to evaluate whether the company can do them at a high level. If the company can't do them at a high level, I prefer to wait. Just the way I see things. People always criticize me because they think, oh, we should be doing this, or we should be doing that. If we can't make a difference doing it, why should we be doing it? If our voice isn't clear and loud, and we don't have something to say. Europe. The European market is as tough, if not tougher, than China, although there's an established way of doing business. It is also very hard for American companies to break through there because there has been business there for a long time. Again, you have to have something very new to say or very exciting to say to break through, or they're already covered. I mean, the last thing that the world needs is another clothing line. So it's very important that if you're going to have another clothing line, or you're going to do business in Europe, or you're going to do business in China, that you have a point of view about what you're doing, and you have a authority and expertise in it. And it tends to be that when I start companies, I like to start companies on a very focused perspective. I don't like to start companies with making a broad line of clothing. I like to start being very focused. Like when I started Theory, I only made pants and shirts out of fabrics with Lycra. Alice and Olivia, when we started Alice and Olivia, we just made bottoms out of fabrics, tapestry, home furnishing fabrics. Rag & Bone, when it was started on a very focused jeans and all. It wasn't what it is today. None of those companies were started what they are today. So it's like when we go to do business in Europe, we start in one country, we do it really well. We pick the country where we believe that our company and the country's culture and aesthetic would match, and we go from there. And it's sort of one country at a time. In Theory, we're very aggressive in the UK, and we're very aggressive in France. Those are the only two countries. And I think if you can be successful there, then you can move on. Each country in Europe is so unique. It's not like you sell one, you sell them all, like the US. There isn't department stores in Europe that, okay, you can sell one department store that has chains in every country. Each country is unique unto itself. In America, it's easy because once I get in with Barney's, Barney's has 30 stores, or once I get in with Saks, Saks has 50 stores. But in Europe, it's country by country. And I think that everyone, there's no question that American apparel companies or apparel companies from clothing companies from any part of the world have to do business globally today. You can't do business just in one country. You can start in one country, but the idea is you have to be able to do business globally, because the future of department stores, the whole buying patterns of consumers and distribution patterns are going to change. And I don't, you guys know this better than I do, but more and more consumers are going to be shopping electronically. They are not going to be, the experience of going into a store is not going to be something that everyone craves. Or, in my generation, you went to a shopping mall, the parents took you to the shopping mall because it gave you something to do for the day. I don't think that's the future. I don't think parents of the future are going to be bringing their kids to shopping malls to give them something to do. I think that shopping and shopping patterns are going to be totally different. Now, I'm not saying to you that a consumer is never walking into a store and they're only buying online, but larger and larger percentages of consumers are buying on more and more clothing and accessories online. It's going to change very dramatically the landscape. The other problem with department stores is it's very hard for them to run stores all over the country. So Saks, that has 50 stores, maybe they can run 15 or 20 of them where they can create an exciting energy and environment. But they have 50 of them. Now I guess they closed 10, so they have 40 of them. But I think that all these guys are going to be shrinking, not growing. I also think that and why the other reason that it becomes important to sell clothes all over the world is that it isn't going to be possible in the future to do what we have done in the past, which is I could sell my line to 10 different stores all in the same area. Stores are going to want to have more individuality. Stores are going to want to differentiate themselves from other stores. And so they're not going to want to carry the same lines that the other stores carry. And that's going to be as much up to the retailers as it is to the manufacturers to decide. And if you're doing business on a global basis, you then can control your distribution on a local basis. And I think that's going to be a requirement. I think also that specialty retailers that have become a bigger share of the business, especially retailer like Uniqlo, for example, or J. Crew is another specialty retailer, that are designing and manufacturing their own product. Those guys have put a lot of pressure on the department stores because they're selling product that basically is similar to that the department stores are selling for a lot less money. You go into a Uniqlo store, and this cashmere sweater that I probably paid $300 for, you can buy at Uniqlo for $50, $60, $70. Now, it's not exactly the same quality or it's not exactly the same cut as this sweater, but there's a beautiful cashmere sweater at Uniqlo for a lot less than what I paid for this one. And that's because of the vertical retailers. And so I think that the vertical retailers have also compounded the problem for department stores. The service is better in vertical retailers than department stores because the vertical retailers are specialized. So that you're going into a vertical retail store that's not like a department store, which is like going to a general practitioner. They have a little bit of everything. Specialty stores, vertical retail is very focused, and their service is very focused, and it's the only place you can go to buy what they have. And a lot of that, I think, is the future of the business, is really being able to control the distribution and voice of your product. And I think the specialty retailers have sort of the best platform for doing that. I think what Macy's is doing is very interesting. They're developing a lot of their own product. And the only place you can get a lot of their product is Macy's. They've done it with Martha Stewart. They've done it with Sean John. They've done it with Tommy Hilfiger. They've done it with a lot of important brands. Yeah. The answer to that, as I said earlier, it became a little more democratic. So I was acquiescing to a lot of people's points of view. I do see, I'd say, 85% of what we manufacture. Is it everything I want it to be? Not always. And that's why I wanted to make the changes that I made, because I don't want to have a company that has such a democratic point of view. And I would say that our company probably has a lot less democratic point of view than what most companies have, but I wanted to have a singular vision. And right now I don't feel it has a singular vision. I do think that the product that we make has high integrity. I think the product that we make is manufactured in the highest way and has great value. And I am still very passionate about the product we make. But I also have to be a tough critic of what I do and our company does. And I think we need to do it better to compete to the level that I want to compete on a global basis. So that's why I have to make changes. You know, as I said to you, I think that maybe we represent two more points of view than I would like. And I'm saying this in the business of our company is very strong. So I'm not saying this because the business of our company is bad. I'm not thinking that, oh, I got to remake our company. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about thinking about how to evolve and build for the future and to make difficult decisions to be able to move forward. And the easy way is to do nothing, by the way. The easy way is to say, you know what? I had a great year last year. I'm having a great year this year. What do I need to worry about the future for? I'm doing great. The company is doing great. But I want to compete at the highest level. I want to have the best possible company I can have. And I want to create an environment in which the people that work in our company are working because they're excited to work, not to collect a paycheck every other Thursday. If they're working to collect a paycheck every other Thursday, I have a problem. If they're working because they're inspired to work and they believe in the company and its future, their paychecks are going to grow and their careers are going to grow, and that's going to be good for everyone. And I have to create an environment that has to be building for the future. And I don't believe that I would ever get to a situation where I think my work is done and the company is perfect. Because when I get to that situation, I need to retire. I'm always pushing and striving to evolve the company forward and to do better. It won't happen in a young company. It won't happen in a young company. There's no way to avoid it as the company gets bigger. It's a very difficult, it's very difficult. And, you know, I think that, and as a matter of fact, I sometimes don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I think that, that the most important thing, like, I believe in the way to avoid that is to continually evolve. And as I say, the world evolves, fashion evolves, people's taste evolves, and your company has to evolve with it. And if the day your company stops evolving and stops it starts looking towards the past instead of looking towards the future, you have a problem. The right thing is to have a good balance between looking at the past and looking at the future. And you always have to be looking at both. You always have to be connected to where you came from, but have to know where you're going. And, I think that it's normal as companies get big, they tend to get more conservative and safe. They tend to get more average. Companies that are starting out can't be average, because if they're average, they aren't going to get anywhere. And companies that starting out have a passion and a sense of urgency and an energy and a product that cuts through all the clutter. And that's what makes them successful. And sometimes as the company gets big, some of the things happen that I said, but I don't necessarily think that's bad, and I believe always in evolution, not revolution. So anything that I'm doing with my company is a continued evolution. It's not a revolution, because a revolution is totally throw everything out and start with something new. Not really what I believe in. But I do believe in constant evolution. It's just like your schoolwork. You're constantly evolving and learning more and growing and growing. You are as individuals. The day you guys as individuals stop growing, I see it happen to my friends. They make a lot of money. They get sort of satisfied and stayed in life. Again, it's not saying that's bad, but I want to stay more on the cutting edge of where things are happening, and so I have to keep evolving. I don't want to stop learning. I don't want to stop working. I may not work the same way I worked last year or the year before, because maybe I'm a little smarter and maybe I've evolved past that. Did you raise your hand? No? Okay. Sorry.
I was wondering if you could tell us more about some of the philanthropic organizations that you're involved in.
Some of the what?
The philanthropic organizations you're involved in, and how those are, I guess, advantageous to your company as well as just, why.
So, I do a lot of work with schools, young designers, CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, supporting scholarships at FIT, supporting my high school that I grew up at, and I'm sort of really into supporting our industry and supporting young people in our industry, because I know once when I was young that I got to where I got to because I had some very close relationships with some really smart guys, one being my father, and then after my father passed away, with a few other people that helped me get to where I got to. And so I tend to like to do that. And I would say to you that there isn't a day that goes by that somebody doesn't email me or call me to want to meet for advice or, just to get my perspective on something they're doing, young people. And always I will meet with them, because you never know where the next good idea is. And that's the way also that I can make sure that I don't get complacent and safe and stale, and that I keep evolving by getting involved with young people that are more in touch with what's going on in the world around than I may be, or in touch with a different world than I may be in touch with, and that I'd like to have some perspective about. So that's also why I'm lucky in that I have many, many different clothing companies that I get involved in, so that even though my day in, day out job is Theory and Helmut Lang and Taskins, I get exposed to many other businesses that I'm in. And so I can see a a much broader perspective than just my own. You know, the company culture will never change as long as I'm there. The company culture will change when I'm not there. Because the culture of the company was created by me and is maintained by me. And very often, you know, I get, I say frustrated, but a lot of my work is keeping people focused on what the company is all about. You know, it's very important for all of the people to be focused on the company's culture and the company's platform. And so a lot of my work would be about that, because I think the good companies, successful companies, are successful because they have a very strong culture. And the people are focused, and they all are, you know, a good company, and I don't know whether my company is this way today. I would bet it's not far off. But my company, in the old days, you could ask any one of the different people in our company, from the executives down to the people in the mailroom, and you could ask them a question, you'd get a similar answer, because they all understood the culture of the company and the philosophy of the company and the aesthetic of the company, because that was so critical. Now the company may be too big, so the mailroom guy may not know it, but you know, I bet all the executives and a little bit down the line would answer the same question the same way. And that's pretty critical, that happens for the company to be successful. That's why, like in a small company, you don't have to worry about that. Everybody lives and breathes the same air. A big company like mine, today, that's operating in many different countries, it gets harder. But the culture is critical. Yeah. So if I did, he wouldn't still be doing what he's doing, and he wouldn't be going to the next level. Actually, you know, and I think Olivier probably had a very tough reputation, but my experience with him has been really good and amazing. And you know, from the first day we decided to do something together, I said to Olivier, we have to be, you know, you have to be straight with me and tell me, you know, if you're feeling one way about something and I'm feeling another way, we got to confront that, and you know, you got to tell me how you feel and so on. And but the beauty of the thing is, if you wrote down Taskins and you wrote down theory and you saw the way the words go together, I think that's the way the relationship has been. Now, it's like any relationship, right? It's always good in the beginning. You never know what happens over time. But it's really been very inspiring for me, and I think it's been inspiring for him and for the company. Yeah.
This is the live.
Okay. This is live. Okay. All right.
In addition to work and passion, what else do you, or books, what else do you look for in young people?
Besides fashion. Oh, passion. I think passion is a big part of it, right? I think that without passion, it's hard. So I sort of, see, here's the funny thing. I don't read fashion magazines. I don't study fashion. My free time is not spent about fashion. Fashion is sort of something I feel. And I just feel things about people, about clothing, about what can and can't be done. So it would be very hard to ask me stuff like that. I operate a lot on my own instincts and my own experiences, but more my instincts than my experiences. And when one has failures along with successes, it's a lot easier to be able to gauge what you do well at, what you don't do well at, where you make mistakes and why you make mistakes, and so you can sort of learn stuff like that. So, I mean, I've been sort of lucky in picking good partners and good people to be involved with and so on, but a lot of that is instinctive. I think that integrity is another thing that's very important, right? You've got to look for people that have integrity, because if you want to hire somebody or have people working in your company, one of the big things that I think our company is about is integrity. And whether it's the integrity of our clothes or the integrity of the people we have working in our company or the integrity of the relationships we build with our suppliers, it's all about that, So I say passion, integrity, obviously creativity, right? And feel for our industry. If you have someone who doesn't have a feel for the industry, doesn't have the creativity, it's hard also. The thinking, people that are successful in our industry tend to be people that think outside the box a little bit. They're not tend to be people that went to Harvard Business School or